Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Artful group on a slightly rainy Tuesday afternoon. I hope that you're all well and that you're enjoying the slightly warmer weather that we've been having. It's certainly been a nice change. This week, I wanted to mark the weekend that's just gone and Lunar New Year, also known as Chinese New Year, and I wanted to think about the artwork and also an art project inspired by a Chinese painter from the Ming dynasty, a female painter. His name was Wen Shu. She was born in 1595 and she was, at the time that she was painting, probably the most famous flower painter in China at the time. And her work still fetches very high prices at auctions. She came from a family of painters, and her family really worked with the area in which they're from. They're from Hanshan, which is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and they really tied in their artistic work to the artistic nature of the area. So when she sort of branded herself based on her family and also based on the area in which she came from, and she had a couple of different artistic styles, which I will show you just now. So I'll just make my screen large. So yes, I wanted to talk today about Wen Shu, and at the end of the presentation about Mogu painting. So I'll come on to that a bit more in a minute. So here we can see an example of Wen Shu's work, and you can see the really, really delicate flowers contrasted with the really, really quite boldly painted rocks and sort of very rough rocks. And these really reflect the gardens of the time, where you'd have Chinese gardens would have very, very rough rocks to represent, that reminded people of the sort of wind-worn mountains, contrasted with really delicate, really, really beautifully painted flowers. So this contrast of kind of roughness and smoothness, delicacy and robustness was something that was found in garden design, but also a lot in the artwork of the period as well. And also not having much of a background, just kind of letting the forms speak for themselves, and also having calligraphy included in the painting as well. A lot of Wen Shu's work was commercial, so rather than or commissioned, and so rather than necessarily being kind of more spiritual, where you might have calligraphy and poems put in, there was kind of more of a I suppose perhaps less calligraphy and more focus on the artwork. But yeah, you can see that she's doing kind of quite close-ups of flowers. She did some pictures of figures as well, but landscape painting wasn't something that she would have done, because that was traditionally at the time that was reserved for men to do. So she would have focused more on kind of more intimate scenes. And here we can see a really beautiful detail, really beautifully observed butterflies and leaves. And I think it's interesting to remember that she was painting kind of at the end of the 16th, start of the 17th century. And we think about European painting at the time. Actually, if I go back to this picture, this could be from the 20th century in Europe. It feels kind of very modern, very abstract. This is sort of almost from the 19th century, these really beautiful renderings of sort of anatomically correct butterflies, and very, very beautifully observed. And here she's using a lot of ink lines, but in some of her paintings, she used a technique called mogu, which I will come on to in a minute. And this is one painting that would be using that technique. So here we can see the calligraphy, the stamps, showing who made it, why it was made, and this bird perched very beautifully on a very simple branch, and kind of a view that you might see in the ideal garden, and these leaves blooming from these very elegant tree branches. And yeah, just a few final pieces. Again, we can see kind of the, I suppose, the the Italian Renaissance word would be the rusticated rock, so very kind of rough and kind of almost looking like waves, but with these beautiful curling flowers coming out of them. And yeah, the kind of the blank background really providing a foil to look at the flowers and look at the rocks in all their beauty without being distracted by anything else. And lastly, I want to show you, these are not by Wen Shu, these are much more modern paintings, but they are sort of close-up examples of mogu. And mogu is translates as boneless. And when you say boneless, it means that there aren't any lines in this. So there are no pen lines, there's no pencil underdrawing, there's just using watercolour. And here it's been used on rice paper, so it has this kind of flowing effect, but you just use watercolour to create your image and different tones. You start off with the lighter tones and then move to the darker tones, as we do with watercolours in a Western tradition as well. You start light, end dark, which is the reverse of what you do with oil painting, where you start with the dark, end with the light. With watercolour, you can't remove paint as you can with oil. With oils, you can scrape paint off. With watercolour, once it's there, it's there. So I suppose this is called boneless, but another way it takes quite a bit of backbone to actually put brush to paper and kind of go for it in a way. You have to plan and observe, I think, but you have to be quite bold with it. So yeah, this is an example of what Wen Shu would have been doing, and as we saw with the bird earlier. So I'll stop there, and I will show you my attempt at mogu. So I drew this little cutting of a lemon-scented pelargonium, and I tried to do the technique. So this is what I came up with. So I'll hold them up together, see if they... There's some similarities. I haven't quite got the angular nature of the stem, but I went in with the lighter colours and then went over with the darker colours, and I've used no pencil, no line, just trying to get the tones. And I think next time what I would do is maybe be a bit more bold, not try and be too fiddly with it, but some of the places where I feel it succeeded more are kind of down here. It's kind of a simple line here, and then this area here, and perhaps up here as well. And this went slightly less well, got a little bit blurry, but that's the thing, it's so quick to do that you could make many of these in the space of 10 minutes. And it's just about practice and playing, and also really observing the thing that you're drawing and spending a bit of time getting to know it, spend a bit of time observing it and kind of seeing where the lights are, seeing where the darks are, and plotting it out in your mind and sort of breaking it down into pieces, and then just kind of letting the brush flow and having fun as well. And if it doesn't work out, you do another one, and just keep going until you find one that you like. So thank you very much for joining today. I hope that you found it interesting. I certainly found it interesting to find out more about Wen Shu and her life, and yeah, as a celebration of Lunar New Year. So Happy New Year to everybody, and I will look forward to seeing you all next week. And as ever, if you make any of your own artwork and you want to send it in, please put a comment under this video or email your artwork to wellbeingonline, that's all one word, at St Christopher's, that's all one word, .org.uk, and we'd love to see anything that you make. So all the very best until next week, and thank you for joining. Goodbye.